Hi, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from Street Scores, and let's talk about it, man. Let's talk about it. There's a report that Josh Harris wants to model his next Commanders regime, everything we got going on, coaching staff, front office. He just wants to win like how the Baltimore Ravens are winning right now. And it's no coincidence that this came out very shortly after the way that the Ravens handled the 49ers for everybody to see on Christmas, which is just crazy. Like, the NFL is not even supposed to be playing on Christmas. They're literally just bullying the NBA for that one. Christmas is supposed to be NBA, Thanksgiving is supposed to be football. Football said give us both of them. But either way, moving on from that whole tangent, I could go on. The Ravens, what they got going on, especially after a lot of people, most notably Mike Florio, predicting that only the 49ers would win, and this was in San Francisco, would kill the Ravens. And so the Ravens went out there and handled business, and you could argue they killed or whooped on the 49ers. And so I'm not surprised. I'm pretty sure Josh Harris, if this is true, has always looked at what the Ravens have been doing just really this entire season. They have the league MVP. They've been arguably one of the best teams in the NFL all season. And then it kind of went out there and proved to the fact that they are the best team in the NFL with the way that they beat the 49ers, who a lot of people probably felt like was the best team. The way they handled them, you got to think it's the Ravens. So I'm pretty sure Josh Harris has been watching and monitoring what the Ravens have been doing all season so far. But after that, this report came out, and I can't blame him. So is it a chance that we may hire defensive coordinator Mike Macdonald from the Ravens as our head coach? Are we willing to go defensive-minded head coach once again and just make an exception for him? Because I know a lot of people, including me, prefer offensive-minded head coaches like a Ben Johnson or guys like that. But are we starting to look at Mike Macdonald? Because defensive-minded head coach just whooped up on offensive-minded head coach Kyle Shanahan. Is this guy the great coach killer? We got to dive into what he's done with the Ravens as a defensive-minded, defensive coordinator this year, but what he could do as a head coach and how he's run through great offenses this year and shut them down. Also, Josh Harris not only looking at some of the head coaches, potential candidates, and just defensive coordinators, coaching staff, but also front office as well. Who are some of the front office members that Josh Harris may be trying to take from the Ravens? And who is a Ravens front office member that's already here that may also help in the recruitment of trying to bring over some of those Raven guys? And also, is this even a good idea? Should we want to bring the Ravens over? Just literally, I ain't even got to go that far, from Baltimore to kind of where all the facilities are at, Virginia. But hey, Landover right there in the middle where you play at, you may not even have to necessarily move out of the house that you live in. Not that bad of an idea. Think about it, Ravens. You know what I'm saying? Maybe y'all can come down here and help us. Y'all already got y'all thing going over there. Come down here and help us a little bit. But before we dive into all of that, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Just like I keep saying, man, I have so many video ideas, and this is one of them that kept just getting pushed further and further back with all of the different random breaking news that kept coming out. So I'm finally getting one of these videos I've been working on for a while out, but I think the next one, the run I'm doing next, hopefully without any other random breaking news button in between, forcing me to push that one even further back, I think y'all are really gonna like that one. That one's a really fun breakdown for the Commanders and why you should be very optimistic. Just stay tuned for that, man. I'm also working on exclusive content for channel members as well, so if you're not, go ahead and become one, because we about to get to work, man. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get to it. Let's get it.
He's our quarterback for the 5-10 years, and I truly believe that.
And let me make sure I go ahead and get this disclaimer out the way every time I do these type of videos, because it doesn't matter, regardless of whether this report is true or not, about whether Josh Harris actually wants to model the Commanders after the Ravens, if it's even, and then like the degree of truth, like maybe he wants to, but he's just like, yeah, that's a nice goal, but you know, maybe we could put our own twist of it. Or is he like directly like, no, we need that, we need to take that coach, we need to take that front office member and make us the Ravens part 2 type of situation. Regardless of any of that, you know I'm Rico of Street Scores. I'm here to talk about whether it would be a great idea or not and break down, could it potentially happen, why it should be a good idea, why we should want to do it, why we potentially wouldn't want to do it, and things like that. So At this point in the video, just go ahead and let you know right now, I do not care about if this report has any validity to it or not. Do not. I'm just here to dive into whether we should or shouldn't and why. Like whether something is a rumor or an actual report that came from the Commanders themselves, from Josh Harris's mouth himself. Whether it happens or not, you know, that's one thing. But again, I don't care. I mean, I hope it happens, but as far as this video is concerned, on December 28th, me being Rico of RicoScores, we're here to touch on whatever the hot topic is, whether true or not, and break down whether we want this to happen or not. Plain and simple. So just for future references on videos like this, I am not here to sit here and even act like this is something that we should take extremely seriously or be on the lookout. But hey, I'm exploring the idea. Is this a good idea or not? Whether it's a rumor or not, man. Okay, now let's go ahead and get to the video. So this came from Ravens themselves. Well, I saw like a Ravens reporter tweet. Washington Commanders owner Josh Harris reportedly wants to model his team after the Ravens. And they said per Albert Breer. So again, whether you could trust Albert Breer, whether you could trust this Ravens reporter source, whatever, don't really care about all of that. We're about to dive into why this should be a good idea or why it could potentially not be a good idea. We're going to do a little bit of both. But of course, you know, people out there, a lot of my boy Manny Benton said, "Dear Josh Harris, if Baltimore is in his resume, hire him." Plain and simple. I thought that was really funny, man. I mean, they got some dogs over there, bro. That Ravens coaching tree right now is going a little crazy. Watch out, man. You never know, man. Shouts out my boy Rio Robinson. He said on Twitter, as someone demanding an offensive-minded head coach for my team, I would totally understand the hiring of Ravens defensive coordinator Mike Macdonald. This Ravens defense is different, and he's young, energetic. Folks speak very highly of Buddy. And that's a great point. That's my point that I'm also trying to make. Like, I'm super team get offensive-minded head coach. There's only a couple of exceptions outside of offensive-minded head coach Ben Johnson and a lot of these smart offensive coordinators around the NFL right now. But that boy Macdonald over there, defensive coordinator for the Rams, I agree with Rio. This will be one of my exceptions to that rule, man. That guy looks a little bit different what he has going on over there. I mean, everywhere he's been, his defense has been elite. Michigan, he's had 2 trips with Baltimore, and this guy's only 36 years old. So if you're thinking, you know, whenever we think of an offensive-minded head coach, the innovative young guy, we only think offensively. You can also have an innovative young guy defensively as well, and Mike Macdonald is that guy. So you kind of don't want to let Ron Rivera and how ugly this stint was with him and Jack Del Rio both being linebackers, can't figure out the linebacker position. Ron Rivera here is the defensive culture building head coach, and by the end of it, we had the worst defense in the NFL as of right now, and arguably one of the worst coaches as well. You have one of the faces of your franchise saying he's 1000% thought about being traded. You have your other face of the franchise, Terry McLaurin, saying I'm out here just running cardio. Like, I mean, and maybe some of it's not Ron Rivera's fault, but either way, we were left with a bad taste in our mouth going with a defensive-minded head coach. Are we willing to do that once again? I don't know, man. But this guy is different from Ron Rivera, dog, because this has been the offensive-minded coach destroyer. Like, when you're talking about all of these offensive-minded head coach candidates that we want, again, most notably Ben Johnson, including Ben Johnson, this boy Mike McDaniel has shut all of them down. He held Bobby Slowick and the Texans to 9 points a few weeks ago. CJ Stroud had one of his only games with no touchdowns. Damian Pierce only had 38 rushing yards. CJ Stroud had 20, and Devin Singletary had 15. They had like a total of 72 with Noah Brown having a -1. Like, they couldn't get nothing going against that Ravens defense. The boys was 7 of 18 on 3rd down, which isn't bad, but 1 of 4 on 4th down. The Ravens do not play on 4th down. They're not one of those teams that gives those up. The Texans had 3.7 yards per play. That's not great. Man, them Ravens, boy, whether it's completely shutting somebody down or it's being bend but don't break, man, you just never know. Because in that game, the Texans out-yarded the Ravens by 3 yards, 268 to 265, and yet still lost 9 to 25. Hey, man, that boy Mike Macdonald running through him. So, yeah, Bobby Slowick over there from the Texans, everybody's super hype about. But then you also have my guy, a lot of our guy. I'm not even just going to say my guy. I'm going to say our guy because a lot of us really love Ben Johnson. He held Ben Johnson and the Lions to 6 points, man. All the way back on October 22nd. Man, that was arguably the worst game that the Lions had all season, I'm pretty sure. I think that's their lowest scoring game as well. I think another game, Chicago, they only scored 13. Against the Packers, they scored 22. Yeah, and then they won 20-6 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But as far as just getting straight up whooped on, the Ravens did them the filthiest in the NFL, 38-6. That was a straight whooping. And now when you're looking at who's the latest victim, the great offensive-minded Kyle Shanahan with his unstoppable offense, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, all of them healthy. You know, all of these excuses have been Kyle Shanahan hasn't had a quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo holding them back. Once they finally, I guess you can kind of say, got a quarterback, even though my dog Cam Newton was completely right about this whole Brock Purdy thing, but a lot of people didn't want to admit it, so he goes out there and has the terrible game he had against the Ravens. It's just absolutely ridiculous. But another excuse has been that the 49ers, one of their star players is always hurt. It's always somebody. Somebody's always missing. And the 49ers are almost as loaded as they need to be right now. I remember seeing Trent Williams on the sideline during that game at some point, so I'm guessing he's a little banged up, but all of the weapons were there. Everybody else was there. And he did them dirty, 33-19, and that score isn't very indicative of how far apart that game actually was. And Brock Purdy had arguably his worst game of his life with 4 interceptions. Sam Darnold came in and only attempted 14 passes and had 1 interception. Brock Purdy didn't even have a touchdown. Sam Darnold did, but Brock Purdy didn't have a touchdown. Christian McCaffrey managed to get 103 rushing yards. George Kittle had 126 receiving yards. Brandon Ayuk had 113 receiving yards. And then you add Deebo Samuel with 47 and Christian McCaffrey with 28. Like, the 49ers were moving the ball, but at the end of the day, they only scored 19 points. So if you're talking about being a complete lockdown defense, again, like I said earlier, you have the Ravens that can do that. But if you also want what it really looks like to be a true bend but don't break defense that wins you games, like, you can get all the yards you want, you can put up all the fantasy points you want, especially in PPR leagues, get all these catches, get all of these yards and things like that. But at the end of the day, when it comes to this end zone, when it comes to this red zone, we're shutting everything down. The Ravens are literally the embodiment of that. Like, they're the face of that the Commanders, I guess Jack Del Rio wanted to be bend but don't break. I'm not a fan of bend but don't break, but sometimes when you're going against high-powered offense, that's kind of the way you have to win. You have to find a way to create turnovers and just play bend but don't break. Let them move from the 20 to the 20 all you want, but when you get past that 20-yard line, you in our house, we're shutting it down. And the Ravens literally do that, and they did that to not only just one of the best offensive-minded coaches out there, that if he were just a free agent right now as a coach, the Commanders would be doing everything in their power to get him. But he's also doing it to this high-powered, super all-star casted offense with weapons everywhere, man. I mean, it's bad how this guy Mike McDaniel was doing people. So, just again, Bobby Slowick, Ben Johnson, and Kyle Shanahan stood no chance against this boy Mike McDaniel. And you could argue that even talent-wise, the 49ers arguably have more talent than the Ravens, but the Ravens just don't have any holes. They're well coached, top to bottom, no holes anywhere, no holes in the secondary linebacker group or defensive line. Just a bunch of everybody doing exactly what they need to do. They have a lot of talent. I mean, they got my Georgia Bulldog, Roquan Smith, over there. They got my dog, Kyle Hamilton from Atlanta, that I've been rooting for since he was coming out of high school, and I'm still sick that the Commanders didn't end up with him, because I never thought, with the way that he was looking at Notre Dame, that he would even be in range for us to get when we were there picking. But then we traded back, and you know, the rest is history. But moving on, my boy Mike McDaniel was not playing with y'all, dog. Look at what the Ravens defense is doing right now. They're number 1 in opponents' points per game allowed. They are number 6 in opponents' yards per game allowed. Again, at the end of the day, they allow the least amount of points in the NFL. They may allow a little bit more yardage than they want to, but that bend but don't break, when it matters most, when it's time for the opposing offense to score, they shut that down. Opponents' points per play, they're first. Opponents yards per play, they're actually number 2. They're better than yards per game. So there's a lot of fluff in there where opponents are kind of just getting away with maybe some garbage time yards and things like that. Also, opponent third down conversion percentage allowed, they're 5th there. Their third and fourth down conversion percentage allowed. Their third and red zone scoring allowed. Again, bend but don't break, God tier. And opponent touchdowns per game, they're number 1, only allowing 1.5 a game, dog. In a passing league, Mike McDaniel was out here doing something and it just seems like nobody else can manage. This is literally a passing league. I'm gonna keep saying it. A great offense beats a great defense every time. A great quarterback and a great receiver is always gonna beat a great DB. That's just literally how the NFL is set up. They have the rules literally set up for offense to win because offense leads the points, points lead the views, views lead the money. The NFL, I don't think will ever go back the other way. We may have different paradigm shifts of whether speed matters more or strength and punching people in the face matters a little bit more. Maybe that, but I don't think we'll ever have a time where defense ever has a strategic advantage over offense ever. So the fact that Mike McDaniel is doing what he's doing right now in this age, he would probably be a Hall of Famer if this was 30 years ago what he's doing. Like if he was that same guy back then, oh my Lord, man, he would be, this is ridiculous. You have to really put it into perspective how much of a passing league this is and how hard it is for a defense to be this elite at what he does. And they're doing it. But we got to look at the other side of it. When you hire a defensive-minded head coach, and right now it's not affecting the Ravens. My dog, Georgia Bulldog, once again, Todd Monken over there is cooking up for them Ravens right now. Got Lamar Jackson looking like an MVP again. And I give Lamar Jackson a lot of credit. I give the fact that the Ravens finally tried to actually invest in some receivers for Lamar Jackson some more credit as well. But that boy Todd Monken doing his thing. But at the same time, when you have a defensive-minded head coach, you tend to burn through offensive coordinators. Because, first of all, you're looking for the right one. You're going through them. Okay, and then when you finally get a really good one, all the other teams around the NFL are trying to take them from you. Because your offensive-minded head coach, if he goes out there and does a great job, people are going to be like, man, why are you sitting over there still being an offensive coordinator? How about you come over here and be an offensive-minded head coach? How about a promotion over here type of thing? So people are always going to try to take away your offensive coordinators. It's really hard to hold on to a really good offensive coordinator because everybody else that needs a head coach is going to be looking at him as a head coach. And of course, you know, most people would love to take that promotion. Higher pay, more responsibility, more power to build your own thing. They don't want to just stay up under another head coach for too long. So that's interesting as in itself. So I mean, because the other argument towards that is that, you know, I know a lot of people are saying we need an offensive-minded head coach, but how about you just get a really good offensive-minded offensive coordinator? We can make it work, but we got to see, man. I don't know. It's really complicated because even Mike Tomlin, the Hall of Fame coach that he has struggled finding an offensive coordinator for a really long time now, one worthy of being an offensive coordinator. And again, whenever you do finally get one decent one, another team, a few other teams are trying their hardest to take them away from you and make them their head coach. So that's a really difficult situation to be in. Also, Ravens front office wise, you have Sashi Brown, the team president, business and everything non-football related. You have Eric DaCosta, executive vice president and director of football operations, the chief personnel guy. You also have Ozzie Newsome, executive vice president, Joe Horitz, director of player personnel, and George Kokonis, director of player personnel. So there you go. I mean, if we want to steal some of those guys from the Ravens, we'll see, because, man, they know how to build a team, dog. I mean, these names alone have been drafted since just 2022. Strong contributors to why this team is really good. Kyle Hamilton, Zay Flowers, Travis Jones, Tyler Linderbaum, Isaiah Likely, and Tavius Robinson. All of those guys were just recently drafted since 2022, man. That boy DaCosta and Joe Hortitz are doing their thing. Should we try to get one of those guys from them? And it's not even just scouting. It's not even just finding the right players. It's also developing them and using them in the right way to maximize their talents. The Ravens are doing it great from top to bottom, and that's probably why, if this is true, Josh Harris, my fault, not Martin Mayhew. Forget him. He's got to go. Josh Harris is looking at the entire Ravens organization, because it's not just a one-person thing. It's not just the scouting. It's not just the development, and it's not just the scheme and the right play calls to maximize their talents. It's a combination of all of those things. So you need the right front office, you need the right coaches, head coach, defensive coordinator, and even positional coaches, the tight ends coach, offensive lines. And with how good the Ravens look, it's no surprise that it may not even just be Josh Harris. It's probably a lot of owners out there looking like, man, we need a piece of that. It's a copycat league. Don't be surprised if we try to draft Jaden Daniels, who a lot of people feel like is the closest thing that we have to Lamar Jackson, especially coming out of this draft. But probably the day he's drafted, he probably literally is the closest thing to Lamar Jackson in the NFL. I'm not going to sit here and act like he is Lamar Jackson, but you could argue potential-wise, traits-wise, he is. So that's the copycat. You get Jaden Daniels, and you try to build that exact offense that the Ravens got going, try to build the exact defense the Ravens got going, take their defensive coordinator before you even draft Jaden Daniels way earlier, bring him over as the head coach, get a good offensive coordinator, maybe try to steal Todd Monken from the Ravens, whoever, and try to get that thing going like that, man. The way they got that machine rolling top to bottom is insane, and it makes it even more insane looking back at how good we look compared to them and going against them in joint practices. We look like we were right at the same level as them. And now looking back, the Ravens were even better than I thought they would be, at least. I thought they would be a really good team in the NFL, but I didn't think they would necessarily be the number one team in the NFL. And everybody was giving them problems. Our defense was giving their offense problems. Our offense was giving their defense problems. It's crazy the different paths, the fork in the road we took ever since that joint practice. They look like the number one team in the NFL. We look like we're destined potentially for a number one overall pick. I don't know how this happened, but hey, man, thank goodness we're about to start this whole thing over, man. I'm not mad at that at all. And then remember, we already have a Ravens guy here. Remember, my dog Eugene Shin, who already did a full over 30-minute video breakdown, everything about his past, where he's been, and all of those type of things, what he does to organizations, how he helps organizations become great and all of that, how he's just this super analytics guy. If you're wondering whether you should go for it on fourth down, he's your guy for that. Should you prioritize tight end, running back, quarterback in the draft or free agency? How much money should you offer a certain position? All of that. He's your guy. He's your analytics guy that if you ever struggle making a decision, you call on him. His first job was with the Ravens. And even the Ravens said that after Eugene Shen left to go to the Dolphins, that they still continue to use a lot of his analytical models when it comes to, like, on the coaching side. The Dolphins brought him over to be the personnel side. The Ravens used him on the coaching side. Again, go for it on fourth down or not. Do we kick this field goal? Like, what are the strategies that we use on the field in game? Like real time. The Dolphins took Eugene Shin from the Ravens and then used them on the personnel side. So again, like, do you prioritize tight ends? Do you prefer to trade back in the draft, trade up in the draft, things like that? And then the Jaguars hired him after that to do both. And then we're bringing them over here to the Commanders to do both as well. And if you notice, the Ravens are number one seed in their division, the Dolphins are the number one seed in their division, and the Jaguars are the number one seed in their division. Everywhere Eugene Shin has been, those teams have been great. He leaves them behind great. He doesn't leave a mess behind. He leaves behind a new golden product for teams to basically idolize and envy right now. And I'm very happy to have Eugene Shin, because if he can continue to do that here, what he's been doing other places, fantastic, man. Because again, the Ravens have admitted to this day they still use a lot of the analytical models that he provided to them. And he hasn't been there since May 2019. He left May 2019, and they're still using a lot of the things that he gave them. And it seems like he's only with the team for a maximum 2 years, if that, usually like a year or a year and a half. So hopefully he's here long term. We'll see. But maybe he's just the type of guy that all he needs is 1 year to help you turn your team around. I think he's potentially going to be involved in hiring of the GM, the head coaching process, and all of that type of stuff here. And man, I hope he does exactly for us what he's done for those other teams, man. I mean, the fact that the Ravens are still using this stuff, he hasn't been there since 2019, is crazy. And again, the fact that every team he's touched is now a number one seed in the NFL is wild as well. Now, of course, it's not like he gets all of the credit. Like, he's just like this puppet master in the back making everything work. But I don't think it's a coincidence that every team he's been on and that he's helped in a certain way, whether it be coaching wise, personnel wise, whatever, all analytics based, all of those teams are number one seeds right now. But hey, man, at the end of the day, in my opinion, whoever becomes GM they better have real control rather than being a yes man like Martin Mayhew. I'm sure Josh Harris will allow the GM to GM. I'm very optimistic about that, but I did want to say that. No more coach-centric models. No more head coach having all of the control. Let Eugene Shin, Josh Harris, whatever it takes, come together, whatever front office, and they put their minds together, get the right GM, let that GM hire the head coach and the defensive coordinator, and let everything else fall in place. I'm hoping that's the way that we're looking at it. Also, another reason we need to thank the Ravens, outside of the fact that we also just want some of their people from their coaching staff and front office, them winning that game also helped the Commanders get a stronger hold on that third overall pick over the Ravens by .002 strength of schedule. So them winning against the 49ers helped us a lot. Shouts out to them, because we play the 49ers. They're on our schedule, and the more the 49ers lose, or the more anybody loses on our schedule, the weaker our strength of schedule looks. And if us and the Patriots finish the season with the exact same record, it doesn't matter if we beat them or not. It's completely strength of schedule. So if our strength of schedule is weaker than the Patriots by the end of the season, we only have 2 games left, then we will get that tiebreaker and we'll have the pick before them rather than the other way around. So we need all New England Patriots opponents to win as much as possible, except for us, and we need all Commanders opponents to start losing for the remainder of the season. So hey man, shouts out to the Ravens for that as well. Also, want to point out the fact that Lamar Jackson was a first round pick, which Caleb Williams nor Jaden Daniels will be at all. But the Ravens are built on the back of a game-changing quarterback in Lamar Jackson, and both of those quarterbacks have the same potential to, remember what Cam Newton said, there's game changers and game managers, and his point starts to look more and more right every week, man. He's starting to look more and more like a genius. Some people were hating on him. First of all, y'all gonna let up on my boy Cam Newton. Straight up. Period. But he's starting to look more and more right every week now. And so I would kind of separate those guys from Drake May a little bit. I think he has a game changer, game playmaker arm, but I'm not sure if he has necessarily the mobility. But I have so much more tape to watch on these guys. I honestly have not watched a lot of Drake May tape, but a little bit I've seen. I feel like Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams separate themselves just a little bit. So if you're trying to go with this high ceiling boomer bust type of guy, the same gamble that the Ravens did, even though you're not going to be able to get them in the late first round like the Ravens did with Lamar Jackson, it looks like Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels are your answer, especially with us having potentially a top 3 pick. And if we lose out and the Cardinals win one game out of these last 2, just give us one Cardinals, we move up to the 2nd overall pick, and things get really fun, man. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned for all of the content. Again, I'm working on exclusive content for my channel members. Of course, let me know in the comment section how you feel about modeling the entire Commanders organization after the Ravens. Do you feel like being a complete copycat is just silly? Do we have too much pride for that? Or do you say, hey man, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Let's just do what they did. Copycat league, people do it all the time in the NFL, and it's worked for other copycats. So let's go ahead and copycat ourselves, because whenever we try to do it our own way, it hasn't worked in like 30 years. So let's go be copycats as well type of situation. So let me know how you feel about it, whether you agree or disagree. And again, if you disagree, I have no hard feelings. Please let me know why you disagree, because again, my goal every day is to become a smarter football fan. You may bring up a point that I didn't think about, and you may even change my mind. So let me know how you feel. And again, I'm doing my best to try to read and reply to as many comments as possible. So I appreciate y'all. I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.